Indiana Hoosiers, your 2025-26 national champions, taking down the Miami Hurricane in a fantastic finale to this year's college football season. Hoosiers win it 27-21 on a last-minute interception from Jamari Sharp. A little bit different of a show today. Now, this is still the Spring Blake College Football Show. This is still your favorite ball knower's favorite ball knowing show. Today is still January 20th, that being a Tuesday. But today, we're just talking national championship. Next full episode will come out on Thursday. We'll try and, get some lingering thoughts on the game, the playoffs as a whole, season stuff, transfer portal. We're gonna restart the spinning a wheel for a TBH and rate because I don't like how it started last week. So we're gonna get to all of that in a couple of days, but we're gonna keep it quick, simple, and sweet, talking about everything we watched last night. Now, before we get into all of that, just like I say at the beginning of every episode, please continue supporting this show. I know the season's done. We got plenty of stuff coming down the pipe between now and the NFL draft, some off-season stuff, so we'll get into all that. Please continue supporting this show. If you are here for the very first time, thank you for joining us. You picked an interesting time to join. Season's over, but hopefully you came here for a good reason, and now you can stick on with us until the 2026 college football season. If you're watching on the YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment, interact, share, whatever you need to do there. If you are listening, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, subscribe, 5-star review, all that simple stuff. The socials, Twitter and TikTok at SpringBlakeCFB. All right, give your boy some credit. I know that I had been spotty at times during the playoffs, but we were all over this game between Miami and Indiana. I told you point blank, I thought the 8.5-point spread was way too hefty, kind of dismissive of Miami as a whole. And I told you that Miami was going to hang around in this thing until the very end, which, as we all know, they did. One drive away from them being the ones hoisting a national championship trophy. I told you that Miami was going to win the battle in the trenches on both sides of the football, which was, pretty alarming to think coming into it because Indiana had such a great run game. The run defense was number one in the nation, but I told you Miami was going to have that advantage. Miami ran the ball for 5.2 yards a carry on the day. The defense had 3 sacks. Pressure on Fernando Mendoza all day long. Indiana, meanwhile, they ran the ball for just 2.9 yards a carry. The defense got a sack on Beck, but he held up pretty well in pass protection, that Miami offensive line did. And I told you that stopping Indiana's ground game was going to make for a harder day through the air, some longer third downs. I think Indiana finished the day 6 of 16 on third downs, far from their best, where they were converting near 30% up until this point of the regular season. And then amidst all that, though, me telling you Miami's going to hang around, I still thought the Hoosiers would pull out the win. Thought that they would find those kind of extra opportunities or those safety valve options, and those things would be the thing to make the difference in this game. They obviously get a massive touchdown off a blocked punt from Mikal Kamara. They benefit from a missed field goal from Miami's Carter Davis. They convert on both of their field goal attempts. Indiana didn't turn the ball over, dominated time of possession, won the penalty battle, had some clutch third and fourth down conversions. And then they also had the quarterback that was just able to make more plays. Mendoza certainly didn't have his best day through the air, 16 of 27, held under 200 passing yards. But when the game was on the line, he stood up and made big plays. Remember how much we talked about during the regular season, how this was kind of a down year for the Heisman race? We all were like, yeah, Mendoza is the deserving winner, but it wasn't this electric race or this, unbelievable Joe Burrow, Johnny Manziel type season. We were like, okay, yeah, it's a good race between a couple of good quarterbacks, but no one had like a dominant season. Looks like Mendoza heard all that and then decided to make his Heisman moment with the national championship on the line. That 4th and 5 quarterback draw, barreling through a linebacker, working his way into the end zone, was the most clutch play we saw all season relative to the moment. Takes a hell of an effort to make that kind of play. Takes a hell of a coach to let him do it. Coach Sig just as he had all season, pushed every right button. He is so good at situational awareness. We always talk about how his heart rate doesn't get above 65 in those moments. He sits there, he's got the stone cold face. He knows when to be aggressive, knows when to play it safe. He trotted out the field goal unit. He's like, you know what? I think we're going to need a little bit more than just that. And he was right that they did. And they bring the offense back on the field, put the ball in their best players' hands and say, hey, you've been delivering for us all season. Deliver for us again. And what will go down is kind of the iconic play of this college football season. Every talking head is going to get in front of their microphone today and talk about, what does this mean for the sport? And obviously it means a ton. To be able to point to Indiana in this college football era and compare to where they were to where they are now. And where they were was 3 bowl wins in program history up until this season. They matched that total. 6 top 10 wins in program history. They matched that this season. The turnaround is remarkable. How they've done it, how quickly it's been, how efficient they were all year. It's so big for the future of this sport. Every program, and not every program, but a lot of programs can wake up today and say, okay, so it's possible. It's possible. You find the right coach who gets the right roster and coaching staff around him. You get the right funds into the right places. You invest in building a team and building a community. It's so funny. There's a video going around on social media of Indiana's first game under Coach Sig. And there's a couple hundred people in the stands. I'm sure there was more than that, but empty. And to think about how quickly that fan base bought in because of what they saw on a football field. That fan base has taken over every playoff game scenario. They made those playoff games home games for Indiana. Now, Miami had a good crowd last night, obviously playing in their home field. When Indiana was on offense, it wasn't like it was, pins and needles, but that game against Oregon in the Peach Bowl, it was all Indiana. They showed up in a big way for Miami. It shows you that it can be done. I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's obviously it can be done now. That's, I didn't grow up. Obviously, I knew of college football in the past couple of decades, but to me, the existence of this show, I've existed in an era when anybody can win it. Now, obviously, they do it in a way last year where Ohio State sparks on and hits their stride, and maybe it's just a flash in the pan where we get back to more of the blue bloods, but I don't think Indiana's going anywhere. I think they've had a hell of a portal despite going on this national title run. And I just think you're going to start seeing some other teams. Can a Kentucky invest heavily in the portal with the right head coach and be a contender in the SEC and then push through to a national title run? Even Miami, use them for an example. We'll talk about the Canes in a second, but for them to kind of just slowly improve each year and get the right pieces in place, make the playoffs, make this run. Long gone are the days of you need to have that Buckeye jersey or that, Crimson Tide jersey or that Bulldog helmet. It's different now. And Coach Sig is, the moment we will be able to point back and say, this is when the sport officially changed for the good. It was awesome hearing Coach Sig talk openly after the game. I thought it was a really nice post-game presser where he's so tight-lipped sometimes and is kind of just stone-faced and just says his couple of sentences and then moves on. It's nice to hear him open up and talk about just, how it's possible and how he is that example now. Very cool to see where this sport is going to be heading. And like I said, Indiana, they bought into it quick. It's not going to work everywhere just like that, but it's hard to not wake up this morning and be like, yes, the future of college football, amidst all the concerns we have, amidst the issue with the portal and the paying of players, all of the things that still need to be ironed out, there's a lot of work this sport needs to do. Having something like this, having a story where a program can turn it around that quickly and you can kind of show everybody else in the sport, oh no, we have a chance in this new era, it kind of outweighs the bad. To where, yes, I know we got a lot of issues, but the sport has never been in a better place in terms of just feeling like everybody's got a spot at the table. So I love that. Love where things are going for the sport. Obviously, I'm happy for Coach Sig. He gave us a few great years at JMU. I want to take can I take 25% of a national championship? Can I take a quarter of that trophy and just be like, yeah, that's part of ours? Loved that at the when they raised the national championship trophy, it was Coach Sig And a lot of the JMU players, I think maybe all of them up there, were the JMU players he brought with him to Indiana, which is just like a really cool moment of like, you are my guys. You are the reason that we were able to build something so successful here so quickly. Really cool moment, getting goosebumps talking about it. Very happy and proud for a lot of players that wore a JMU jersey, a lot on the coaching staff that helped us to a couple of successful years transitioning up to the FBS level. I was rooting for a good game. I was rooting for Miami to cover. I obviously wanted Indiana to win because there's a lot of people in that program that did well for us at JMU. So, look, for Miami, as we switch to the losing side of this, stings to be that close, right? Stings to be that close. Let a national title run kind of slip away in the waning minutes of the season. But it's also hard to think you wouldn't have signed up for a run like this 2 months ago, coming off of that overtime loss to SMU, right? To think back to that moment and how disastrous that loss felt, and then say, well, okay, that's going to bump us out of the ACC title game. But the committee will still place us into the playoffs after saying that we really weren't going to have a shot the entire way between now and then. They get us into the playoffs. And then we go to Kyle Field and we take down the Aggies in an absolute slugfest. And then we go and beat the defending national champions and the number 2 overall seed in the playoffs in Ohio State. You then fend off a red-hot Ole Miss football team thanks to a clutch last-minute drive from Carson Beck that ends with him running it in for a score. And that leads us to playing on our home turf with the ball in our hands with minutes to go, having a chance to win a national championship. You sign up for that every day, twice on Sunday. I know it stings. It's a crushing loss. You were just there against a team that it was hard to even keep it close with this season. It stings. Hard to not say you wouldn't have signed up for this a couple months ago coming off of that loss to SMU. What a couple of years at the U, man. It is hard to not think about the missed timelines between Cam Ward being here a year ago versus being here now with the team that they have built in place. Obviously, it's not to say that a Cam Ward-led Miami team this year wins the national championship, but, a little bit more arm talent, a little bit more mobility, maybe a guy that you trust a little bit more. Look, to talk about the quarterback, 3 losses this year for Miami. Each one ends on a Carson Beck interception. I'm still coming here to defend Carson Beck, man. I think a lot of people like to clown on him. He's an easy guy to pick on because he's got the weird-looking face. He's got all those leaked Snapchats. You're like, dude, come on. Just have a little bit more of an awareness. He does have some boneheaded plays sometimes, but, man, he gave you more than you could ask for in this playoff run. In the playoffs, 65% completion rate, about 200 yards a game, a little bit below, 6 total touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Finishes his college career 37-6 as a starter. Miami was never going to win the national championship because of Carson Beck. They were going to win because of all the pieces that were around this football team. Carson Beck served his role as best as you could have hoped him to, but there was obviously going to be a risk when you need to put the ball in his hands and say, hey, go drive this thing 85 yards to get us a score and a win. Oh, and against the best team in college football. I don't clown the guy. I thought he did well in this playoff run. Everybody's going to sit here and say the same stuff about, can't win it with Carson Beck. And it's like, sure, but what else were they supposed to do? Put in a backup? Go find somebody else a month ago? I don't know. You were right there. You were right there. And you knew all season long that you weren't going to win because of Carson Beck. So at the end of the day, the rest of the pieces didn't do the part. Kicker missed a field goal. Special teams, you get a punt blocked. You had some, bad penalties in the game. You got dominated in time of possession. This isn't a Carson Beck thing. He's the guy that makes the game-losing play, but Miami shouldn't have found itself in a position to need Carson Beck to make the play to win the game. That's where I land on Carson Beck. Miami moving forward, they do such a good job at recognizing talent, retaining talent. They've got a quarterback issue to figure out in the offseason now. It seems like Darian Mensah, the guy from Duke, is going to go play for the Canes. We'll see if that becomes official in the coming days. Good quarterback, talented player. Miami's going to be in the thick of things. Look in the ACC. I know that you can have one year where you look great and then it falls off quickly. Mario's built this thing year in, year out where it's going to be sustainable moving forward. So feeling good about the direction of the Canes. Hard to not feel just awesome for everybody up in Bloomington. that is going to wrap a bow on today's show. Like I said, wanted to keep things quick. We're in at about 15 or so minutes. So hope everybody enjoyed the game. Hope everybody enjoyed this college football season. We'll be back in a couple of days to talk playoff stuff as a whole, more transfer portal, moving forward. And I'm excited to have a really strong offseason here and get us just ready and booming, where we are, light years ahead of where we are right now in terms of show production, all that stuff, by the time next summer rolls around. So thank you for tuning in. We will talk to you in a few days. I love you. I appreciate you, and we'll see you then. Peace.